Coming up on Network Africa. Kenya lifts ban on flights from Somalia. UN analyst says famine numbers in Ethiopia's Tigray region is highest since Somalia in 2011. Plus, France announces end to Operation Barkhane counter-terrorism operation in West Africa's Sahel. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Kenya has lifted a ban on direct flights to and from Somalia, barely a month after announcing a suspension of air travel between the two countries. Kenya's Foreign Affairs Ministry says it hopes the move will lead to full normalization of diplomatic ties. However, the ministry said that all existing travel protocols will be applicable, with travelers requiring a negative COVID-19 certificate. Somalia has welcomed Kenya's decision to reopen its airspace, saying the move could pave the way for normalization of bilateral relations. Kenya banned all flights to and from Somalia in mid-May, but gave no explanation for the move. And now Ethiopia's electoral board has postponed until September elections in two of the country's federal states, Somali and Harare. The voting, which is due in 10 days' time, will also not take place in Tigray, where there is currently a conflict. The authorities say irregularities and problems with the printing of ballot papers are behind the delay. And so for these constituencies, the elections will be done in a second round on the 6th of September. However, no date has been set for elections in Tigray region. The poll was initially to be held in August last year, but was postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, in Tigray, more than 350,000 people are said to be suffering famine conditions, with millions more at risk. A United Nations analyst, Luca Russo, says people are at starvation level with excess mortality. Aid groups blame the conflicts for the worst catastrophic food crisis in a decade, as most of the 5.5 million people in Tigray need food aid.
To be very honest, people are at a starvation level with excess mortality, wasting a very high level of wasting for children, and basically not be able to access to enough food to eat. And this is quite, and if I can add on this is 350,000 is the highest number we have recorded since the Somalia famine in 2011. We are not sure today if aid can reach the most affected population because of the conflict. The whole western part of Tigray, we did not have data on that area because for us is a black spot in the sense we don't know anything about what is happening in western Tigray, and even for there bring assistance is quite complicated. But one of the things that is happening at the moment is that people just move away, they are displaced. So at the moment we have 1.7 million people displaced in Tigray. I think the situation is extremely serious, and to us the only way forward is that the party in conflicts comes to some agreement and allow the access of humanitarian assistance, because the situation will worsen.
In the meantime, Ethiopia's government has denied reports of a looming famine in the conflict-hit Tigray region. It's responding to the UN report, which said 350,000 people were living in famine conditions, a claim which it described as unsubstantiated. This comes after 7 months of conflict in northern Ethiopia, where thousands have been killed and many more displaced. Ethiopia says the report and warnings about a famine are untrue because the government is providing food aid to those in need. The Foreign Ministry says farmers in the region are being given seeds and farm inputs in preparation for the rainy season, which begins in just weeks. Well, there is an initiative to support farming communities in northern Ethiopia against the negative effects of climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. Workers have been enlisted to reinforce a network of irrigation gullies that will stop heavy flooding from washing away fertile soil. Take a look.
In the highlands of Ethiopia, Terefe Sega and dozens of other construction workers are loading rocks into wire cages. They're called gabions, and for farmers here, they could be a vital weapon against the effects of climate change. This is an area of Ethiopia's northern Amhara state that used to be covered in farmland, but heavy flooding has washed away the soil, leaving farmers with less food to sell or feed to their families. The gullies are part of an irrigation system that directs the rainwater and traps soil. Terefe is employed by the Rural Poor Stimulus Facility. It was set up by the International Fund for Agricultural Development to support rural communities hit by the global health crisis. For Terefe, it's meant to be able to help the community, but he says the money he's earned has also changed his life, allowing him to buy food and clothes for his children. The project's organizers hope that the combination of a simple solution, community involvement, and food security will help people here survive these global challenges.
To security matters, Burkina Faso's government is said to be quietly back in talks by local leaders with jihadist militants as a way of stemming bloodshed in the Sahel region. 2 years after local emir Jibril Diallo fled his home in northern Burkina Faso following death threats from Islamist militants, he received an unexpected request to return and take part in peace talks with the same people who wanted him dead.
West African armies and their international allies have fought jihadist militants in the Sahel region for a decade with little success. But calm has returned to one small town in Burkina Faso. They tried the novel approach of diplomacy. 2 years after the town of Theo was devastated by jihadist violence, Deputy Mayor Adama Ouadraogo and a group of volunteer fighters set out a militant encampment.
The men who we are in this crisis against, we all know each other. But these 12 and 13-year-old kids, they don't know anyone. And if they grow up in this violence, with this state of mind, it will be very difficult to bring them to their senses. The crisis could never end in Burkina Faso.
The first meeting is said to have held secretly in December in the forest outside the town. But the mayor realized he would need to help to secure lasting change, and so he called on Jibril Diallo. A highly respected traditional chief to the region's Fulani herders had left Theo after receiving death threats. But he returned to lead talks with those who had wanted him dead. By February, the pair had struck a truce with the militants. The jihadists' main condition was that volunteer fighters cease their patrols and vowed to end their attacks and lift blockades.
The government did not ask us to talk to these people, but they are not against it because they haven't stopped us from doing the work. The day they say they are against it, we will stop doing it. But what we want is for the government to support the people, because from time to time, the mayors have to help us with petrol discreetly.
The negotiators agreed and allowed the jihadists and their family members to trade at Theo's markets and receive medical care in the town. Today, commerce is once again free-flowing in Theo, and thousands of displaced people, like this butcher Idrissa Diallo, have returned.
I had gone to Côte d'Ivoire because it was too dangerous in Thieu. Now, calm has returned, and that's why I came back. I started to work a bit, and there are lots of customers who came.
However, bloodshed continues elsewhere. A week ago, 132 people were killed in an attack on a village near the border with Niger. With no apparent end in sight, former colonial power France on Thursday announced it was ending its 5,100-strong counter-terrorism operation in the Sahel. President Emmanuel Macron said troops would now operate as part of broader international efforts in the region. And the Burkinabe government does not publicly acknowledge the back-channel talks by local leaders like Ouadraogo and Diallo.
Well, like mentioned there, French President Emmanuel Macron has said his country's military operation in the violence-hit Sahel region of West Africa will no longer exist in its current form. He says it will be replaced by another mission of French troops that will further rely on other partners. France currently has about 5,100 soldiers deployed across the semi-arid strip on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert as part of its Operation Barkhane, whose headquarters are in the Chadian capital. Its forces are mostly focused on tackling armed groups in Burkina Faso, Chad and Niger. Well, joining us now for more on this is security analyst David Otto. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
So what do you think gave rise to President Macron's decision?
Of course, this is a decision that the French President Macron, would have taken after, a very deep analysis of the situation. The Operation Barkhane, which we're talking about here, has been operating since 2012, and perhaps there's been an evaluation. So I see 5 reasons why this decision could have been taken. First of all, from 2012 until today, which Operation Barkhane was launched, as you mentioned, with the 5,100 men, the results, are very controversial. You still see there is an increase in the Al-Qaeda's Jenim group, which is a coalition of Al-Qaeda groups within the Sahel. There is still the presence of the Islamic State of the Greater Sahel. So the results are controversial. That would be one of the reasons why France will think it may not be, any longer necessary. I think the second point is that there is no longer local support for French intervention. People are not seeing the results which they were promised, but also you cannot operate in a country, especially like Mali, when you don't have the backing of the military. That is almost impossible for French troops to survive. And that leads us to the third point, which is the number of casualties which French soldiers have suffered. That in turn has turned the French population against France present in the Sahel. So this withdrawal is also to please the French population, in terms of the number of troops that they've lost. The most immediate, which is the fourth point, is the latest coups which have occurred in Mali with the overthrow of President Boubacar Keïta and the taking over of power by the military junta. That may have led to the decision, by France to say, we are no longer needed and we've got to leave. The last point, if I may say, is that there are so many other operations, which are a duplicate of what Operation Barkhane was actually meant for. You've got the Operation Takuba, which is an EU operation. You've got French troops within that. You've got the G5 Sahel and the UN MINUSMA, as well as other operations. So, in one way, France may be withdrawing Operation Barkhane or stopping Operation Barkhane, but their presence will possibly still be felt, by other international groups which are present in the Sahel.
David, a lot to look at here, the impact of this new situation, a lot for us to discuss, but I'm afraid we are out of time. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Still to come on the program. Our Africa Tech segment discusses the prospects of Nigeria producing its own mobile phone and SIM cards. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Back here in Nigeria, one student has been shot dead, while 8 others and 2 lecturers have been kidnapped from the Nuhu Bamali Polytechnic in Zaria local government area of Kaduna State. It's the 3rd tertiary institution to be attacked in Kaduna State in the last 3 months, following abduction of students from Greenfield University, Chukun, in April, and Federal College of Forestry Mechanization in Afaka in March.
This is Nuhu Bamali Polytechnic, located along Kaduna Zaria Road, the gateway to most of the states in the northwest zone. It's less than 2 kilometers to Zaria City in Zaria local government area of Kaduna State. However, despite its proximity to the Emirates, the peace of the Polytechnic community took flight on Thursday night after kidnappers invaded the institution, killing 1 student and abducting 8 others and 2 lecturers. Eyewitnesses told Channels Television that the gunmen came into the school through an unfenced area and went straight to the hostels and staff quarters, shooting to create fear amongst residents. It's also reported that the bandits attempted to attack travelers on the highway, but were repelled by troops before they then made their way to the Polytechnic. 2 students were shot by the bandits. One of them, who is in his final year, died on Friday, while the other victim is still in hospital. 2 people who say they were lucky to escape expressed concern over the security situation.
I got this in the process of escaping. They went into my bathroom where I was trying to enter the ceiling, and they dragged me down and brought me outside. So in the process of bringing me outside, I realized that I can push the guy since the gun is hanged. And I pushed him and I took off.
While I was running, all of them started chasing me. I ran to an extent whereby I saw somewhere. I went there. Then the next thing we started hearing was a gunshot.
The wife of one of the lecturers narrates how her husband was kidnapped.
One of them from outside said, if you don't cooperate, just shoot his leg. I said, don't worry, just cooperate. That was how they pushed him out of the window, and then the person that came inside also followed.
The students of the Polytechnic say this is not the first time they are witnessing such attacks due to its vulnerability.
At least we should see troops around. We all know that this is not where they're supposed to be. But because of the security issue in the states, we need them around. Many students are not staying in the campuses because of issues like this.
The state government promises to do its best to improve security.
We are of the strong conviction that the bandit came to the institution because they were denied freedom of action on the Kaduna-Zaria road. Possibly that is why they exploited the window that we saw here.
This is the latest attack on a tertiary institution in Kaduna State in the last 3 months. In April, over 20 students and staff were kidnapped from the Greenfield University in Chukun. 3 of the students were killed. All others have since regained their freedom. And in March, 37 students were abducted from the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization in Afaka. They've also been freed.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. On Wednesday this week, President Muhammadu Buhari received the first made-in-Nigeria cell phone known as RTF Mobile. This is coming after recent reports that the country is on its way to producing its own mobile phone and SIM cards. The phone is one of the 12 cell phones produced by the Model Skills Training Center of the Industrial Training Fund under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. The phone was presented to the President by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Adeni Adebayo. Joining us now is Biola Oseni, Chief Technology Officer, Triset Communications Limited. He joins us from Port Harcourt in Rivers State. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me on the show.
While it's good that we're taking advantage of our local talent to create things now, there's been quite a number of smartphones manufactured by Nigerian makers. Does the fact that this has the full support of the federal government show that this is truly come to stay?
I would say yes, and I would say no. Well, yes, because it seems federal government is interested in seeing something being produced in Nigeria. They want to see homegrown product, which is fine. And I would say no, because some things are good at the beginning, but at the later on, it gets messed up. And where it could get messed up is the kind of structure between the inventors and federal government. Is this a kind of PPP, public-private partnership, or is this a kind of minimum viable product that requires funding, and federal government wants to be like an investor to invest into such innovation? So this kind of structure is what's going to determine if this has come to stay or it's just one of those, noise making.
The mobile phones are said to be made from components locally sourced from states like Lagos and Abia State. What does this mean for us as a country, though? Isn't this a step towards providing an enabling environment for local talents?
This initiative is laudable, and it gives a lot of local talent the morale to build something for Nigeria and to be consumed by Nigerians. It's quite awesome to see this going on, and I think the ecosystem for the mobile phone manufacturing is very huge. And if major components are coming from Nigeria, then I think that's really awesome, and that's going to boost the economy, eventually. And I think I'm happy about that.
Okay, but how do you think these devices would be rolled out for people to buy?
That's one of those. This particular question is related to your first question, because beyond creating minimum viable products, you also have to do feasibility studies to check market product fit, and you also have to put in a lot of business structures in place, and before you can see that happen. But if they really want to do something and grow rapidly, they need to actually adopt what's already in the system, which is already in the market. The model we have right now is that you have gadget shop, which is the last mile to the customer, and in all those gadget shops, each of the brand has their own table with their brand ambassador that try to convince customers to buy this gadget. I think if they adopt this model by coexisting with the players and have very good brand ambassadors to push the product at the last mile, I think they'll make a lot of progress.
And Mr. Oseni, what about affordability and durability?
Yes. That's another part of if this has come to stay, because you have to make a product that fits your people, that fits the environment. And if I look at the product they are making, I would say it's a low-end or mid-range product, which means it's going to be for the masses. So it means that you need to create something very rugged, something that's very tough, that can accommodate the kind of lifestyle the end users already have. And that's what's going to determine how long the product will be how fast the product will be embraced and how long it's going to stay in the market.
All right, then, Mr. Abiola Oseni, Chief Technology Officer at Transit Communications Limited. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you, too.
And that's the program today. Have a lovely weekend. I'm Teniola Shubowale.